Do you want to know what the fallen are, little one? In a sense, they are angels, but not the angels your mom imagines she prays to. Brass trumpets picnicking in the clouds. In their true essence, they are great swirling engines of wing and blood, fiery eyes that peer around the corners between worlds. Dark, radiant things conjured from fresh battlefields. A Frankenstein's Valkyrie, forever crashing to Midgard. What grief demands their hate, what vast cannibal hunger.
Welcome to the Fallen Cycle Mythos Fiction Podcast. This universe is full of secrets, waiting for those brave or foolhardy enough to seek them out. Cycle 2, Party at the World's End. Take a mad ride past the event horizon of sanity, as Lilith and her band of miscreants transcend from escaped convicts to superstars of a different kind. They grapple with the intoxication of growing influence. This is the story of those fallen who walk amongst us in a universe where 2012 went a bit differently, and hints of the world that is to come. Discover more about the Fallen Cycle mythos, including comics, novels, setting lore, and an RPG currently in development at fallencycle.com. And for our discussion and actual play exploration of RPG system and setting, visit modernmythology.net. This podcast contains adult themes and may induce psychosis. And now on with the show.
Season 5. Chapter 5. Nothing to see here. 2011. The best lies are also true. Gabriel de Leon.
I remember it so clearly. It was a year before my imprisonment, almost to the day. A day seemingly like any other. The alarm dragged me out of sleep, not so much kicking and screaming as a pathetic shamble in bunny slippers. There was no need to rush anything. I had my routine down to an exact science. I intuitively knew how long I had to half read the headlines on my iPad as the TV blathered in the background and the coffee gurgled like a pimp with his throat cut. I wasn't thinking about Bradley. I wasn't thinking about anything. Stella was performing her own ritual, which at this time amounted to about 15 minutes, standing in a steaming hot shower. Some mornings I would break the monotony by joining her in there. Just the opportunity to see her pleasing shape all wet and smooth was enough to make my day. But at the same time, we didn't have much to say to one another. This morning, I didn't join her. I ate my waffle and waited for her to finish so she could drop me off at the office before going about her day. My mind kept wandering back to Bradley and his op. I had agreed. By the end of our long talk last night, now it was a waiting game. Eventually, I'd get a message from him or one of the other agents. That's just how it always worked. Eventually, Stella was dressed and we were out the door. Sure enough, I got an email from Agent 156 later that day. It was equal parts cryptic and amusing, or was that irritating? I'm not even sure anymore. Still, I knew more of the lingo than I like to admit. Truth is, the moment I finished reading the email, I felt like I had a purpose again. As an agent, the daily grind became just a front. You can keep your dignity. The suburban dream looks nice from the outside, but that's all it is. A shell wrapped around nothing. Date: 3/8/2011. 2. Agent 888. Subject: briefing for Op Memnon Aleph. I am working on developing a questionnaire which will be used to determine an applicant's placement into one of 6 cells. True or false, I often cry after masturbating. I sometimes dream about having sex with my mother or father. I have an interest in theater. I consider myself comfortable speaking openly to others. I have a psychological case file, which is currently open, or have received psychiatric treatment in the past 2 years. I have faced significant legal problems in my life. I often find myself daydreaming about violent acts. Pretty basic stuff. psychological profiling and such. BBOHO has provided cell diagrams. These cells will continue to be provided with missions, projects, etc., relevant to their placement. If successful, this would provide for mimetic infection and good times for all. Additionally, it would allow us to provide cultural nudges. Part of the beauty of the cell concept is, of course, that no one involved at any level knows who else is involved or where information is coming from. We are all moles. I will say that I am not the one running the show, nor is the Mother Hive Brain Syndicate. So what I want to know is, are you ready? Meet us in front of the KOP Mall in a week. We will have supplies. In closing, consider this aphorism. Our sages say, the kidneys give advice. In particular, the right kidney relates to spiritual advice or introspection. The kidneys act similarly to the conscience. As is said, by night, my kidneys chastise me. This refers to the Chesben Nefesh, introspection, of the month of ER. Mind your dreams, agent. Mind your dreams. It was only when I finished that I realized one of my co-workers had been reading it over my shoulder. "What is that all about, man?" he asked, trying to be chummy. You'd have to meet the guy, but trust me, he has no friends for a reason. It's online role-playing. "Oh, huh," he said. "Is that some kind of sex thing?" "What? No, it's, swords, castles, demons like D&D. Right. Dork." He had lost interest and wandered out of the cubicle like a drunken rhinoceros. Keeping the two worlds separate wasn't that difficult. The real world was an autopilot routine that I followed, so I could eat without having to hunt game with a spear and sleep without foraging for branches in the forest. Idle hands. A week later, I found myself staring at one of the many entrances to the King of Prussia Mall from inside a gas mask. For those who haven't had the pleasure, let me just say, KOP is like the platonic ideal of shopping mall, which is to say that it is placid hell on earth with elevator music. The seventh circle, fake marble, and all the people are display mannequins come to life. It was a warm day in early fall, and I was a great deal warmer because the hazmat suit was, shall we say, less than breezy. I looked down at myself and shook my head. Was the giant bumble-bee screen print going too far? Beside me stood Agent 777, Agent 117, and Agent 113. Agent 156 had called out at the last minute because he said he had to babysit his friend's pet spider monkey. I had met some of them before, but knew none of them particularly well. All of us were wearing these obnoxious hazmat suits and holding devices that Agent 036 had designed in a garage, choked with second-hand electronics and pot smoke. He'd scored the suits too, or so I was told. Suburban patrons whipped past, coming and going like ants, casting hasty and uncomfortable glances in our direction. The devices were covered with flashing lights, dials, and weird analog visual displays. They looked a lot like something from Ghostbusters. Very scary to the proles, but absolutely useless. As I looked us all up and down, it dawned on me that with the gas masks and suits on, we could have been anyone. I mean, I'd communicated with many of them online before. I had met someone going by Agent 777 at a cafe a few months ago, but anyone could go by Agent 777. This was the veil of anonymity that we all hid behind, like our suits. Actually, strike that from this brainwave transcribed record. It sounded better in my head, or I guess this is my head. At any rate, our mission was simple. Go into the mall, walk up to patrons, and run these devices up and down their bodies. Meanwhile, one of the other agents checked meaningless notes on a clipboard and another repeated the mantra, "Nothing to worry about." "Nothing to see here. Carry on. This is just a routine inspection. Enjoy your shopping, sir." Of course, when people hear "nothing to worry about," they worry a lot. When they hear "nothing to see here," they look around with new eyes. I imagine that was the purpose of this reality pranking, to snap people out of their daily habits. In the past, that had always been the MO, when you got down to it. Even after my conversation with the buyer, I had no way to know if he had actually, finally gone completely over the edge, and he dragged us all with him. Inside the mall, I glanced over my shoulder to see 777 bantering with a bleached blonde with pigtails and a tramp stamp at the food court. He said, "I see you are a student of medicine or the hermetic arts. Agent 777, pleased to meet you." He emphasized the word with a sort of a relish which made his lecherous double entendre uncomfortably audible. She stared back blankly with a glazed-over expression. I couldn't tell if this was because she had no idea what he was getting at, or if she was simply, like any other normal human being would be, shocked at the sight of a man in a hazmat suit with a device looking like the PKE meter from Ghostbusters, casually hitting on her in the middle of the food court as she ate her mugu gai pan. "Excuse me? What, did I sneeze?" he asked. "No, I mean, I don't think so. I'm not a nurse, and I don't know anything about your hermit studies." "Hermetic," he corrected. "Your tattoo. Those are the twin serpents of Hermes, entwined around the staff of Caduceus. The serpents represent, alternately, the double helix coil of human DNA, and the Ida and Pingala currents of the Kundalini, the male and female principles of energy, which are polarities that constantly seek reconciliation through union." He licked his lips. To the detached observer, and I'd say I qualified as both, this conversation was like watching a bad sex ed video with a head full of blotter acid. Agent 777 was playing the role of the creep, trying to seduce Cindy into teenage pregnancy, but someone had replaced his script with a cut-up of Aleister Crowley and Joseph Campbell lectures. And holy fucking Christ, he was still going at it. "By my smell shall ye know me, and by my smell I shall be known. As above, so below, sim salabim, bimba saladu saladin." This is all exceedingly technical and scientific, mind you. I am a scientist. I work for the government. We are investigating a claim of some sort, which I can neither confirm nor deny at this point. "Just what agency are you working for anyway?" she asked. Meanwhile, Agent 117 was giving a woman hell. She flapped her arms up and down in a comical expression of frustration, stomping her foot as she screamed, "I know my rights, you goddamn son of a bitch. I ain't no goddamn terrorist." "Ma'am," he began, "I'm afraid our meters are reading some sort of paleo-ana-meta-quantum flux interference coming from your shopping bags or purse. Now, if you would just cooperate with my questioning, I will be happy to let you go on shopping. But if you give me trouble, I'm going to have to bring you in for a full-body cavity search." Her eyes were like two beets rupturing out of their fleshy sockets. "I told your ass already. Take a look at me, white as a peach. I ain't no terrorist. Who's your goddamn supervisor? I want your badge number." Agent 117 smiled. "Ma'am, the agency I represent is sanctioned by the U.S. National Defense Authorization Act, and by this act I am entitled to detain you indefinitely and without trial if you continue to obstruct justice and interfere with my investigations here. You don't like it? Take it up with your government." Agent 113 strolled leisurely through the entrance to Feverish Trend. He moseyed up behind a young teenage boy shopping for Rage Against the Machine t-shirts and tapped him nonchalantly on the back. The young boy whirled around. His expression changed quickly from surprise to terror. "Son, do you realize you are supporting dissident materials, and as such you are encouraging domestic terrorism and unlawful enemy combatants? I hope you realize this is grounds for a search. Show me your ID. Now." The boy began to puff up his chest. "Hey man, I know my rights. You can't just search me for no reason. You pull that shit on me and I'll sue your ass and whatever NWO fascists you are working for." When a man in a hazmat suit asks you very politely to show your ID to him, you'd best comply before you get your skull cracked open. Now please, your ID. In a similar way, all of us were having a grand old time playing dress up in our mother hive brain issue hazmat suits, when, as if out of nowhere, sirens and loudspeakers blared through the acoustically reflective mall. "Stay where you are." Down the hallway, we could see a group of mall cops pointing toward us. Throngs of suburban mannequin people pushing and shoving in all directions. And behind them stood real cops in SWAT gear. We took one look at each other and tore off in the opposite direction. We scattered down side corridors and into random stores, depositing pieces of our costumes in trash bins and clothing racks as we went. I was feeling pretty superior as I made a turn around the bend behind Baskin-Robbins when I plowed full speed into a blur of black. Skidding backward on the floor with a squeal, I looked up to see a scowling face and a nightstick. As if in slow motion, the stick raised another few inches and then came down on my shin. Hard. I wailed uncontrollably and curled into a ball. He grabbed me by my neck and somehow managed to lift me to my feet in one fluid motion, slapping cuffs on my hands and dragging me down the corridor. He certainly outperformed the stereotypes I knew of donut-eating cops. "Look," I managed to get out. It was just a fucking joke, okay?" "You really don't want to talk right now," he said, still dragging me, my toes barely kissing the ground. "Wait, how did you know where we'd be?" I asked. "You got here real fast." "We got a tip, telling us exactly what you plan to do." "What?" He elbowed me in the ribs as a reply. I said, "Shut up." "You're not going to read me my rights?" I momentarily felt like the kid in the record store must have felt. He stopped and stared right through me. His eyes were made of chiseled ivory. "You have no rights." He dropped me on the floor. I could hear boots clacking, the hushed whispers of onlookers, my stomach growling in agitation. Then everything went black as a bag went over my head. The interrogation room was nothing special, an office conference room. The man seated opposite me was husky, 40 going on 700, and world-weary. I could tell this from the lines under his eyes, like the rings on the inside of a hewn tree. "I'm Trevino," he said, the tone of his voice doing nothing to dispel my narrative. "Agent 888. Johny Jones," I replied, a little more cheery than one might expect. "Oppositional defiant, I guess," I said aloud a moment later, accidentally. "Christ, you kids," the man muttered, leaning back in his chair. "All right, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to answer them, you know, in a way that makes some kind of fucking sense." I nodded. "What was that stunt you pulled today?" "It was a prank." "A prank?" "Yeah. To start, it's illegal to go into a public place as a group with your face covered. Did you know that?" he asked. "No, I didn't actually." "Oh, so you didn't hear about those kids on Wall Street getting bagged and tagged for wearing those Guy Fawkes masks at their little sit-in?" He tapped a finger on the table. "I'm going to cut to it. There was an anonymous tip of a terrorist attack on the mall, so the hammer came down pretty hard. If you can answer a few things for me, we'll overlook the criminal charges, and you can overlook the splint on your shin. Yeah? I looked down, only then realizing what had happened. I had a vague recollection of being in a hospital and getting a morphine injection. The pieces suddenly clicked into place, not oppositional defiance. I was high as a fucking kite on acid, holding another kite on ketamine 20,000 leagues under a sea of tits. Hold on. A tip? Fucking Bradley. I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't find that emotion. There was just a warm, gooey blob where anger was supposed to be. What do you know about Mother Hive Brain? Trevino asked, sheepishly. Hard to say that and sound imposing. That's some kind of club? I asked, feigning confusion. He scrutinized my face. Yeah, he said flatly. Are you asking me out on a date? He frowned. Stop trying to be cute. They're wanted for starting an insurrection. Sleeper agents popping up all over the place. It's like playing whack-a-mole. My eyes narrowed. Why would he tell me that? Was he testing me? I wouldn't know anything about that, sir. I'll be honest with you too, okay? A friend of mine put us up to this stunt. I mean, he suggested it, and we thought it would be funny. And I bet you all the donuts in the world that he was the one who gave that anonymous tip. I am so gonna kick his ass. The best cover story is often the truth. Donuts? Was that supposed to be a cop joke? Sorry. No, it was pretty funny. It's not like we can't take a fucking joke from a 20-something role-playing nerd playing dress-up. I'm just a hair past 30, I said. Trevino sighed. Right, whatever. Look, sorry about the shin. That was maybe a bit much. Chuck can get carried away. You're free to go. For now. The surveillance must have started then. Or had Bradley handed my scent to their dogs from the beginning? I should have expected it, but the following day I was fired. I sat down on my desk, opened up my work email, and there was a letter in my box. The salient details ended with, "Please clean out your desk by the end of the day." I had been outed as a terrorist. Now everyone who knew would treat me like something between a rabid dog and the creepy uncle who gets too touchy-feely when he gets drunk. I tried to look on the bright side. After all, I hated the fucking place. I didn't like anyone there, and nothing I did contributed to anyone's life in any meaningful way, except for that whole money thing. I rode home in our Nissan. My mind raced on about how I would start the conversation upon returning home. I envisioned a mortifying interaction. Hey, hun? So, you know how I had that job which secured our financial situation? Well, I kind of fucked that up because I was taken in. Just a little faked bomb threat. There weren't any charges though, so it's all okay. I'm sure McDonald's won't mind. I'll just apply there. I knew she loved me, but maybe in the way someone would love an orphaned puppy. A scruffy, socially awkward puppy. And everyone has their limit. I could only get away with being uncompromisingly myself while being fired from every job I had for so long. And I loved her, I think. Maybe more than any of the others, not because she represented the unattainable goal, but because she represented the ideal made flesh, the real, the imminent. She always grounded me when I needed it throughout all of my ups and downs, and the worst of my anxiety had to do with the fear of her abandoning me when I needed her to lean on. All that said, I'm not sure I knew her well enough to know what her reaction would be. For some reason, she was standing there as I entered our cul-de-sac. The Nissan pulled into the driveway. There was a pregnant silence. I have to tell you something, Stella. She breathed in deeply and let out a barely audible sigh. I attempted to cushion the blow. I love you, you know that? More silence. She sized me up and gave a wry smile. You lost your job again, didn't you? She said blandly. There was only a hint of detectable emotion, that of an exasperated mother trying to deal with a stubborn and insubordinate child. Look, before you start in on me like I know you're going to do, just let me explain. This time it's different. It really wasn't my fault. I mean, it's not my responsibility. I didn't make this happen to myself. And Bradley, I don't like that creep, she said. And I know he was the reason you got it into your head to do that bullshit. I think you're out of your mind. This isn't a game. I was getting dry mouth and my palms were starting to sweat. Bradley told me it was just going to be a little prank. We'd have a bit of a laugh and that'd be it. I had no idea any of the bomb threat stuff was going to happen. Jesus Christ, Johnny, are you 15? Most adults, they just don't do that kind of thing, and I think you must be bored with me or something because you are really reaching. I don't think this is who you are. And now this little piece of concept art or geek fest roleplay thing or whatever it is has cost you your job. I was a suspect, I shot back, feeling dejected. It doesn't matter, Johnny. Anyone they even suspect of farting and coughing the wrong way, they'll come and lock them away now. And you're playing at this with your twisted fuck of a friend. This is serious. People could get hurt. I love you. I had no idea it would happen like this. You don't understand. I've known Bradley for years, and he just always has this way of coming back into my life. I can't help it. He's just an old friend, and we thought this would be a funny prank to do to help wake people up. I was trembling. What the hell do you think you're waking them up to anyway? She asked. She looked into me without a trace of recognizable emotion. I searched for something human in her eyes, but found them strangely blank. She smiled again, briefly, and taking another deep breath, she opened the door and walked briskly into the house. I remember Bradley taking me aside once and confiding in me in one of his rare moments of near humanity. He seemed perturbed, anxious. Listen, man, you're familiar with some of the black ops the CIA ran on unsuspecting test subjects concerning mind control, right? I nodded. We were in my basement at the time, converted into a makeshift recording studio. He was making me uncomfortable but didn't seem to notice or care. Well, I'm sure you've heard of Operation Monarch, alternately Operation Mockingbird. They call it Monarch, or butterfly programming, because the butterfly always returns to its point of origin again. It's a way of controlling chaos. 0 point endgame, dig? Commonly referred to in Discordian circles as Operation Mindfuck, or just OM. Bradley, you look like a tool when you attempt to make connections between the CIA, mind control, and Discordian propaganda. And probably reading it to me straight off the internet, I thought to myself. Am I? He replied, ambiguously. I will tell you this. Carrie Thornley, who helped bring Discordianism to the forefront of the New Age hodgepodge of metaphysical wankery, knew Lee Harvey personally. His public story regarding this matter was that he was originally an unwitting test subject of MK Ultra or Operation Monarch, depending on what you'd like to call it. The bottom line is that Thornley knew something most people don't, and that became Discordianism. Doesn't it strike you as odd that Operation Mindfuck would bear the same initials as a legit CIA mind control op like Operation Monarch? Do you know how many people have now been conditioned with monarch mind control cues via pop culture and media, teachers, friends, family? He asked. No, Brad, not exactly. I wasn't really paying attention. Maybe that's my trouble. I never pay attention to the right things. Didn't pay attention to Stella, never even paid attention to the buyer until long after he had played me like a pawn. I'll tell you how many, Agent. A lot. A whole lot, that's how many. A fucking majority, that's how many. I finally looked his way. How does that tie into what we're doing, Bradley? I've discovered the Omega self-destruct button. It is a fail-safe level of programming for human automatons, which ensures a timely death for all of those in whom the response has been triggered. I've learned how to trigger it. I'm building it into all MHB sleeper agents. I mumbled absent-mindedly, zoning out again. You got into my Adderall again, didn't you? You know it, baby. Listen, you ever hear of the BB? He eyed me in a really strange way. The Blue Brotherhood, he continued. They're a mystical recruiting organization in theory, but in practice, they're a front for the Brotherhood of the Sacerdotal Knights of National Security, or the NSA, which is to say, the only real occult lodge operating behind the scenes with any political clout these days other than the CIA. Whatever you say, Bradley. I spoke softly, shrugging it off. I continued with my work, and he left silently. That's the last thing I remembered for a while because benzodiazepine kicked in, and the next moment was, by the clocks, almost a day later. Benzos are like some kind of time travel device if you take enough of them. Pop. Suddenly you're in the future, and you have no pants. I woke to find a field report I'd written, I guess. Field report, Agent 888, Operation Monarch, Mind Control Contel. Be forewarned, we are entering dangerously weird territory here. The cover-up I'm reporting on was allegedly responsible for the death of at least 3 individuals, all ostensibly suicides. All were artists and writers attempting to deal with the material I am now piecing together. I feel as though I may be following footprints directly into quicksand, but I feel the risk is always worth it when the truth is at stake. I buried my head in my hands. This was getting out of control.
You have been listening to the Fallen Cycle Mythos podcast. Keep subscribed to receive new episodes as they are released at fallencycle.com or on the podcasting service of your choice. Party at the World's End was written by James Curcio. Thanks to J.F. Stackhouse and Nate Samsel for collaborating on early drafts of this story. The soundtrack was produced by James Curcio, with special thanks to various creative collaborators for inspiration and soundtrack source from old sessions, including, in no particular order, Scott Landis, Sean Marsden, Jen E., Gaitan, Sarah and Rahul Iyer, Martine Della Ruffa, David Bessel, Ari, and Nate Samsel. Cut the Sky's Throat, an album selected from this feature's soundtrack, is free to stream and will be available on Bandcamp. Music by Lilith, Dionysus, Cody, Jesus, and Ariadne. A statement on the use of neural networks is available on our website for those curious about how we do, and don't, use these technologies. This podcast is Creative Commons 3.0, Attribution, Share and Share alike, non-commercial use.